It's over 2.5 miles in length. That's gargantuan.
Why would someone want to do this?
It's the oldest fragment of brownstone X.
Sunny beaches, lush greenery, and some incredible summers. This is how we know Australia, the smallest continent of the world that holds one of the largest countries and its namesake. But the reality couldn't be more different. Behind the glistening beaches of the country, you'd find a plethora of terrifying secrets from nature itself. It's not shocking that Australia has earned itself a striking reputation for hosting the world's deadliest animals, bone-chilling invertebrates, and some fascinating species of plants. Yet, there's a lot more to discover. Join us as we wander through the terrifying new discoveries made by scientists in Australia. Number 7. The Maori Man. All right, we're pretty accustomed to the ancient geoglyphs of the Americas that emerged centuries before us. The emergence of geoglyphs just don't happen overnight. Those intricately carved bizarre patterns are a work of art that demands the blood and sweat of its creators. But the most famous rearrangement of the natural landscape in Australia just emerged out of nowhere, and it's one of the biggest geoglyphs in the world. Back in 1998, pilot Trey Smith was flying between the outback towns of Maori and Coober Pedy of southern Australia when he noticed something strange about the unfamiliar route. The landscape below him wasn't anything like usual. What he saw was a humongous pattern of an Aboriginal man carrying a boomerang, and well, it was massive. The Maori Man, or the Stewart Giant, had been etched into the landscape overnight, and well, the creator of this terrifyingly colossal geoglyph remains a mystery to us. All things considered, the origins of the geoglyph shouldn't have been hard to trace. After all, the town of Maori only has a population of 1,500 people and lies in the middle of the country's vast, empty interior desert. You'd have to travel at least 700 kilometers to get to Adelaide. Yep, Maori is one heck of a remote area with a very closely knit population. Even then, no one saw anyone making one of the world's largest geoglyphs. Take that, BuzzFeed Unsolved. The mystery of the Stewart Giant has grappled the locals for more than a decade now. Everything about the geoglyph is so strange that the people can't help but get curious about the mastermind behind the pattern. In fact, in 2018, an Australian entrepreneur offered a reward of 5,000 Australian dollars or 3,700 US dollars for anyone who had even a tiny bit of info about the origins of the Maori Man. Nothing turned up though, and that just fueled the whack conspiracy theories behind the geoglyph to no end. Yet nothing beats the strange occurrences that happened right after Trey's monumental discovery. When the discovery of the Maori Man became a local news hit, its popularity was soaring. That's when the hotels and bars in Adelaide started receiving strange faxes about geoglyphs. When the first fax detailed the very precise information about the landscape pattern, people weren't exactly spooked, until they got the second fax stating how the Stewart Giant serves as a perfect tourist attraction to generate financial gains for the Aboriginal community living in southern Australia. The same fax also mentioned how no laws were broken to carve up a giant figure on the landscape. Very quickly, people started to notice how the language used in the faxes was pretty American and didn't resemble the local Australian dialect. To make matters more twisted, people found a plaque near the geoglyph with an American flag. Soon enough, a glass jar with the aerial photo of the Maori Man appeared out of nowhere, and that jar also bore the American flag. So far, the popping up of these clues is a big why in the study of the geoglyph. Sure, they seem to vouch for the Aboriginal population, but the community was pretty offended that their land was used without their consent. In fact, the surge of tourists in the area has deeply affected the Indigenous lifestyle and their wishes to remain secluded. Well, perhaps it's the thought that counts. Number 6. The Venomous Cone Shell. Picture this. It's a bright, sunny day at the beach, and the soft, foamy tidal waves are flowing over the beautiful shells that you're about to collect. Seems like a harmless way of spending your time near the ocean, right? But if you're out of luck and accidentally pick up a cone-shaped shell, things can go down the hill very quickly for you. Found at the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, These cone shells are equally famous for being beautiful and deadly. As of now, there are 600 known species of these shells, and you can encounter 150 of those in Australia only. Shell collectors are left mesmerized by the vibrant colors and intricate patterns of these shells. The most lethal species found in Australia is called the Conus geographus, or the geographer's cone. And oh boy, if there was a beauty pageant for shells, this particular species would definitely take the crown. But picking them at the Great Barrier Reef would be a huge mistake. You see, within those brightly colored, ice cream cone-shaped shells lies a predatory snail that kills people. Forget about the sloppy, harmless snails that you've encountered on the beach. This particular species makes the cone snail absolutely lethal. These shells have harpoon-like darts which are dangerously venomous. If the dart pokes you, it will deliver a highly lethal venom via its tooth that will leave you paralyzed. You heard that right. The venomous toxin is known to be so potent and powerful that it makes your body instantly weak, slurs your speech, you can't walk, you can't see, or hear. And if the venom quickly spreads in your body, it will reach your lungs, leaving that very vital organ essentially dysfunctional. In that case, a venomous cone shell is just simply fatal. And we wish we were just speaking hypothetically here. Nope, far from it. As it stands today, more than 20 people have died due to Conus geographus's active toxin. And we can't even put a number on how many fish have been left paralyzed and eaten, thanks to the shell's harpoon-like dart. Yep, Australia is officially terrifying. Number 5. The Thousand-Legged Millipede. We already know that the biodiversity in Australia is pretty crazy. From cute hopping kangaroos to giant spiders, the country has it all. And well, you're very much mistaken if you think the country has showcased its entire portfolio when it comes to terrifying insects. And the next discovery proves exactly that. Now let's be honest, millipedes freak us out. In fact, the very name of this arthropod translates to 1,000 legs. And if that's not frightening, then what is? Yet lucky for us, no scientific record had ever flagged the discovery of a true millipede. The closest we got was a species with 750 legs. Until this terrifying discovery in Australia changed everything. Nothing major, scientists have found the first true 1,000-legged millipede in Western Australia. This species, called the Eumillipes persephone, has 1,306 legs, and it's in a league all of its own. The origins of this millipede are pretty astounding. A group of miners had drilled a 60-meter deep hole into the ground for mineral exploration. That's when they reported a habitat of unusually elongated millipedes that didn't seem to resemble their native Australian brethren. And their environmental consultant immediately knew that he was witnessing something profoundly new. Scientists were shocked to see that this species doesn't have eyes or pigmentation, and their slimy body was elongated to a great degree. The biologist studying Eumillipes persephone reported that the creature is around 3.5 inches long and only a millimeter wide. And this set of measurements makes it one of the tallest critters ever found. In the research paper published by the team, we get to learn that the millipede has a cone-shaped head, beaked mouth, and large antennae that it uses to perceive the environment. What's really scary is that the biologists were able to pinpoint the evolution of the species that dates back millions of years ago. The closest ancestor of the 1,306-legged millipede must have gone underground when Australia's environment got hotter and unbearable. So if their theory is right, there must be more habitats that host the true 1,000-legged millipedes. And well, that prospect is both scary and exciting. Number 4. Gimpy Gimpy. Australia doesn't only pack a punch when it comes to its native terrifying animal species. Its trees have also earned a notorious reputation for being dangerous and life-threatening. As it stands today, the country has 4 native trees that are known for the stinging effect they have on anyone who touches them. Out of these 4 pain-inducing trees, Gimpy Gimpy takes the cake. On the outside, this notorious tree looks like a whirlwind of bushes that desperately needs lawn maintenance. Their overarching and extensive growth pattern could be very useful to find some moments of shade and coolness. But don't make the mistake of even crossing the path of these stinging trees, because you're not ready for the long-term pain or illnesses that follow. It takes months to recover from the toxins of the Gimpy Gimpy. You'd be experiencing gut-punching pain for weeks, or you'll have regular sneezing fits for the days to come. Now that sounds like unreasonable hyperbole, right? Well, we wish that was the case. Hundreds and hundreds of timber workers, foresters, and surveyors have been the victims of Gimpy Gimpy, and their stories will single-handedly scare you from touching any tree ever again. The first ever account of the stinging tree dates back to 1866, when a North Queensland road surveyor, A.C. McMillan, met with a tragic accident. As per his letter to his boss, his packhorse was stung, got mad, and died within 2 hours. 2 hours! Let that sink in. Another equally terrifying account, Australian ex-serviceman Cyril Bromley had tripped onto the Gimpy Gimpy tree while navigating the forest. Bromley was serving his country during the Second World War, and times were already quite tough. But nothing compares to the pain that the unsuspecting stinging tree caused the veteran. In his own words, he spent 3 weeks strapped to a holiday bed, and the pain drove him mad as a cut snake. But the worst was yet to come. Cyril's fellow officer made the grave mistake of using the Gimpy Gimpy tree for toilet purposes, and when he couldn't tolerate the pain, he shot himself. And well, who knew a tree's legacy could be so gloomy and bleak? The stinging tree's chemical warfare has been well documented in the Australian rainforests, and it's safe to say you won't be touching this tree with a 10-foot pole either. Number 3. The world's first hybrid sharks. The shallow, jaws, deep blue sea, and whatnot. If shark movies have taught us anything, it's that these powerful creatures pose a serious threat to human survival. You simply can't outrun them, or more appropriately, you can't outswim them. You don't stand a chance. So you can only imagine how terrified everyone was when the Australian waters churned up frightening news about its local cohort of sharks. In a phenomenon that no one saw coming, sharks are evolving into a more threatening and powerful species. You see, the 2 deadliest sharks known to humankind are breeding to give birth to hybrid sharks, and it's safe to say we are never taking a dip into the Australian waters. In 2012, a group of marine biologists encountered a bizarre species of shark that looked foreign in the native waters. And well, as strange as it wasn't entirely uncommon. Big predatory sea creatures lose their course at times, only to find themselves in completely new waters. But upon a closer inspection, biologists determined that far from home wasn't the case for whatever they were witnessing. What they observed was far scarier than their initial theory. All of the 57 sharks that they found were hybrid creatures of the common blacktip shark and the Australian blacktip shark. And this new class of sea predators has profound implications for oceanic biodiversity and our safety. The waters stretching from Queensland to New South Wales are a common hunting ground for these cross sharks. Scientists are increasingly worried that the parents of these predators have quickly adapted to the warm waters as well. And if the danger of shark-infested water wasn't enough, the hybrid creatures and their growth in their population are pretty bad news. You see, scientists have never expected the Australian blacktip shark and its global counterpart to ever breed. It just doesn't happen. Since sharks mate physically, their chances of this crossbreeding was statistically non-existent. But hey, you can only trust the sea predators with a surprise attack, right? Not to mention, these sharks are going to kickstart a totally unwarranted game of the survival of the fittest on their home turf. That's right. As scary as it sounds, these predatory children can easily overpower the purebreeds, aka their parents. Call it a matter of evolution or eventual extinction. The worst-case scenario still comes with a particular habit of the blacktip sharks. They are known to be the resident cannibals of the shark species. And oh boy, they're pretty relentless when it comes to eating their own flesh and blood. In fact, 90% of their diet is just other fish or the members of their own family. So how do we know that the hybrid breed won't prey on the pure blacktip breed? Well, here's the thing. Marine biologists are certain that the hybrid sharks can replace the blacktips in the long run. Number 2. The Hories. So when we hear about the waterfall, a very distinct image comes to our mind. No matter if you're wondering about the steep drop of a river or an ocean, the drop of the water is always in the vertical form. But you can trust Australia to defy the laws of nature to give us a unique yet terrifying tidal feature that will leave you awestruck. Located in Talbot Bay in Australia, this oceanic wonder has earned its reputation for being a hotspot for tourist attention. After all, the renowned biologist and natural historian David Attenborough has described the Horizontal Waterfall as Australia's most unusual natural wonder. So what's the deal about this oceanic wonder? The unusual tidal waves at Talbot Bay forge horizontal currents that look like a waterfall turned sideways. When the tidal waves of the turquoise blue water of the bay are high, they take a steep turn through the ridges of the McClarty Range. The colossal tide builds up at one end of the narrow ridge, and the turbulent speed of the water itself gives you a unique illusion. It seems like a horizontal waterfall has emerged in the ocean. Since the gap between the McClarty ridges vary from 10 meters to 300 meters, the trajectory of the tidal wave is steep and turbulent. As the rising waves pass through the narrow slits, the gushing water artfully imitates a waterfall that's running on the ocean. As the gap is wide enough for the boats to pass, you can actually ride the waterfall. And how fascinating is that? Number 1. An extinct cockroach rediscovered. You probably don't have a cool story about rediscovering a supposed extinct species of an insect at a valuable World Heritage Site, but a student from the University of Sydney does. Honor student Maxim Adams was on a mission to study the Lord Howe Islands in Australia after the government's successful rodent eradication program at the site. Adams was hopeful that the absence of rats from the island might have given space for unusual creatures to leave their refuge and live a safe life. Not to mention, he was also hoping to stumble upon some interesting species of insects that were believed to be extinct due to the rat infestation on the island. So you can only imagine his surprise when he lifted a rock under a banyan fig tree, only to discover a particular species of cockroach that was believed to be extinct 80 years ago. Adams found a wood-feeding cockroach, scientifically known as the Panasthea lata or P. lata, which was a common species found on the island. Back in 1887, a group of scientists from the Australian Museum had taken a monumental expedition to Lord Howe Island to configure new discoveries. One of their most remarkable achievements was the discovery of the P. lata, which played a major role in nutrient recycling on the island. Plus, the abundance of species was a major source of food for the birds. Yet in 1918, rats found their way to the island from a shipwreck. And in the few decades that followed, the rodents had successfully wiped up the entire population of cockroaches. At least, that's what the scientists thought. Adams' discovery tells us that some P. latas survived the predatory rats despite the uneven odds. They were just hiding in the deep, unexplored pockets of the island and made themselves super scarce. It was only in 2019 that an important yet controversial decision to eradicate the rats was taken to maintain the biodiversity of the island. While the decision was pretty unpopular, certain biologists saw a massive opportunity to restudy the extinct species. Now the only question we need to ask here is, why are these cockroaches so important? Because, let's be honest, these creatures are quite a menace, and no one wants to be near them. But the team of marine biologists from the University of Sydney wants to give the P. latas a better rap than their common, more mundane cockroaches we find in our own homes. Apparently, these creatures are ecologically important, and they have no interest in entering people's houses or ever leaving the forest. What they do is that they recycle the leaf and wood litter to keep the forest healthy. Plus, as the supply is pretty hefty, some species get to feed on them as well. All in all, P. latas make an excellent survivor story. Now, if you found this video interesting, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this.